evening. Welcome to tonight's Table Talk with Parents. My name is Alicia Newell, and I serve as the Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs. Tonight's Table Talk is, our topic is your shockers finances. And so this is always a really big question that families have in regards to federal financial aid, scholarships, and then of course, how do you pay for your students' tuition? Are there options for tuition payment plans? And so tonight we bring the experts to you to help answer any questions that you may have. As always, if this is your first time joining us, at any time you can drop a question in the chat box and we'll address those as they come in. But before we get started, I would like to introduce our guest. First is my partner in crime, sidekick, sister on campus, Kim Sandlin, who serves as our Director of Student Success, and Teresa Turn, who is with our Office of Financial Operations, and then our Executive Director of Financial Aid and Scholarships, Ms. Shilu Surrender. So I will turn it over to them and let each kind of introduce themselves, and then we'll get started with financial aid.
Hello, I'm Shilu Surrender. I'm here. Good evening.
There we go.
Good
Go
evening.
ahead, Shilu.
Hello, I'm Shilu Surrender. I'm the Executive Director of Financial Aid and Scholarships here at Wichita State. Been here in this office for about 22 years, so feel like this is my area of expertise and would love to visit with families and students about how we can make Wichita State affordable and accessible for our students.
Hey everyone, I don't know if, sorry, our pictures are jumping around. I'm Kim Sandlin. I've seen a lot of you, I'm sure, who've tuned in either through a previous table talk or at orientation. So it's great to be here online with you all tonight. As Alicia said, this is a hot topic among our new families. And I already see there's questions in the chat. So I'm not going to waste any more time and I'm going to pass it off to Shilu to get started.
All right. So first of all, I'm going to present on financial aid and scholarships tonight and just give a little bit of an overview of things that families need to know about as they're entering in August and getting ready to start school for the fall. So a lot of this information you may have seen in various formats before, so I won't go into a lot of details, but we'll highlight some things that I think are important as you make the transition. Next. So first and foremost, if your student has not completed the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, that is the most important part in this to be considered for any type of federal financial aid and some need-based scholarships. Student must complete the FAFSA. So if you have not done so already, it is not too late. You can do that at any point. We would recommend the sooner the better. So sometimes there's some limited funding programs that get exhausted. So the earlier you file it, the better. And you do this every year. So as you start thinking about each academic year, be sure to do this early as soon as it's available and get that done, and then get everything that's requested of you also done. This is when you think about grants, when you think about federal work study, when you think about student loans, when you think about any kinds of aid, whether it's need-based or student loans, which are not necessarily all need-based, this is what you do. You have to file the FAFSA to be considered. So do that early and do that every year. Next slide. Okay, so once you have filed the FAFSA, all the information regarding your aid offer, any requirements, everything is found on the financial aid dashboard. And you go to your MyWSU portal, and that's where you find the information. So for example, if a student is selected for a process called verification, where we are required to really look at the information submitted from the from the tax return. We have to have that information completed before we can offer aid. So any missing documents, any requirements or requests from our office, we send a prompt to the student through their MyWSU, their Shocker email, and then they have to go to the dashboard to really get the information on their specifics, because we don't send a lot of confidential information via email. Everything is through the secure portal. You must go to the dashboard to see what's missing, to see the requirements, and then finally to see the aid offer of, once all of that is completed, we will let you know what types of aid that you're eligible for, and then you can go in and also accept your aid. The different various grants are automatically accepted, but if you're wanting student loans, if you're wanting federal work study, those need to be accepted because we don't automatically award that and disperse that. So be sure to go out and accept the aid that's offered, and then that completes the process and gets it ready for fee payment. When it's time to put that towards your charges, we'll do that automatically once you've done these three pieces. Next slide. Okay, so in terms of costs, there are things that are called direct costs, which are really your tuition and fees, and if you're living on campus, your food and housing. Those are the pieces that you will actually get billed for, and Teresa will talk a little bit about how that process works. Everything else is part of cost of attendance, what it overall costs to go to Wichita State, and we want to make sure that you're aware of that, and really we inform you about that because you need to plan for it. Not that you will be billed from Wichita State for these things, but that you will need to plan for it and make sure that there are resources. You've considered how you're going to pay for that each semester. And so those are books and supplies. Some of the books, we're trying to reduce costs for students. So a few of the books may be on the account through a line item called Access Now. And you'll see that on there as a much reduced charge that's on there for books. But you will know that the students will be given email information about that. So they need to be aware of which books are through that process and which books they must go to the bookstore or online to actually order. The personal costs that we look at are, we know that students still have costs related to toiletries and to maybe a cell phone bill and other things that they have personal costs. And so we want to factor that in, and if there is aid available for those things, we want to make sure that we offer that. So we consider personal costs. And then of course, for students who don't live on campus, there's transportation to and from home. So we want to make sure that we consider gas costs for those students who are living further away and having to come each semester. There's costs for long distance travel, whether that's airplane or driving from a long distance. We factor all that in and make sure that it's part of the cost of attendance, so that if there is aid that's needed for that, if there are resources that are available, that's considered and part of the cost of attendance. And then one additional piece that your student can ask for consideration one time during their time at Wichita State is for a laptop or a computer. So we can factor that into the costs for one time during their time as an undergrad here. Next slide. Okay, so then in terms of the aid and then paying the bills, once that process starts, a lot of times students have a little bit of anxiety about how they're going to pay for things, and maybe families too. And so one of the things that we have really focused on this year is financial wellness, making sure that students have an awareness of things like budgets and planning and preparing for not just this year and this semester, but all 4 years or 5 years of their time as an undergrad at Wichita State. That's something that you have to think about ahead of time. And we now have workshops that we're going to be offering in the fall semesters that students can attend and learn about things like budgeting and how to maybe think about planning for their apartment costs or their future costs for if they have transportation as a need, if they have various things that they need to plan for and budget for that are bigger expenses or even smaller expenses, we want to make sure that they know how to do that. And so this is a new program that we have available for our students. They can go into, it's cashcourse.org, and they can go in and create a free account. And then there's various modules that they can do, learn about budgeting, learn about the terminology of finances, learn about all the things associated with planning and paying for college and for other expenses in general. So highly encourage you. There will be information coming out here in the next month or so about the workshops that we'll be doing. We will have prizes and things that we offer for students who attend. So encourage, we'll have a lot of promotion through social media. So there will be an awareness about it once we get that rolling, but that's something that we'll be offering this next year so that students really feel good about their finances here at Wichita State and being able to afford their first year and then also their all 4 years. Next slide. So one of the ways that we partner with you to help students as families is that our advisors are available. We have 5 advisors that are knowledgeable about scholarships, about federal financial aid, whether it's, FAFSA can be sometimes intimidating for a person the first time that they're filling it out. And we don't want that to be the case. We want you to be really confident about doing this process, about filing aid for aid. And so this is the best way to really, if you have any questions, reach out to our office, schedule an appointment. We love to meet with students and families. In person is great. Zoom is a convenient way to schedule it when we're available. You can also do phone calls. That's not as, sometimes a student really needs that one-on-one face-to-face, hands-on kind of experience with these things related to financial aid. They need to be shown how to get to these forms and complete these forms and things, and we're available to do that. So please, 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 if you have any questions, reach out to our office, schedule that appointment. We're available, and we'll be happy to help you with all of your financial aid needs. That's all I have tonight, but if you have any questions based on what I've talked about tonight, please put those in the chat and we'll be here throughout the hour to answer any questions that you can think of, but also we're available for those appointments. So thank you for being here tonight. I look forward to meeting you and your students this fall.
All right, Shilu, we do have some questions that came in. And so I'm trying to scroll back up real quick to get, to find our first, actually. Okay, so Kurt,
Yes.
actually they're merit scholarships. So our merit scholarships apply to the invoice since they don't see that on their son's application yet.
We can only disperse aid 10 days prior to the start of the semester. So that's a federal regulation. So about 10 days prior to the start of the semester, that aid that is ready to be transferring over to Teresa's side of the house will transfer over to the bill, and you'll see it apply towards that. It's called application of payment. It'll apply towards that balance and reduce that balance so that the net amount that you would owe would be what you see after the aid has been dispersed. Good question.
And then Robin had a question about are books a separate cost that parents will pay for separately from FAFSA and scholarship, if you can help clarify.
Yes, there are a few books that will be charged on the account because the university is able to get them at a reduced cost, a significantly reduced cost. And so the students have to opt in for those or opt out for if they don't want to do that. But those will be charged on the account, and the student will see that as a line item if it's a course that requires that type of a book. If it's one that they have to actually purchase, then they'll know that as well. And they'll go in and look at that course, what the required books are for that course. And then they can opt to, there's a variety of resources available, whether that's on campus through our WSU bookstore, online through various resources. And then you would go purchase that separately if it's a book that's not on their fee bill.
Perfect. I think most of the other questions that have come in so far are for financial ops, so we'll hold on those. If she's agreed to stay on with us until the end. So as we transition and start talking now about the other side of house and the fee bills and when that's all applied, if you have specific questions about financial aid, please feel free to put those in the chat. Kim,
I do. I don't know, Sheila, if you can see all of the comments, but someone gave Laura Lee a shout out for being a great advisor. And I have to echo that shout out. Your staff it's an incredible group of advisor. And I know Laura Lee works very, very hard and is often at orientation. So she is awesome.
Yes. Well, thank you for that. Laura Lee is one of our senior advisors. So a few of our advisors are a little bit newer and they're learning the ropes, but all of our advisors will help you with any questions that you have. If they don't know it themselves, we will find the expert. Sometimes there's some tricky tax questions that even I don't know the answer to. But I have a tax expert in my office that can help with FAFSA related tax questions. And so we have a large staff with a lot of knowledgeable people and are happy to assist you with your questions.
One thing that I'll also add that I really appreciate about your staff, Shilu, is that a lot of our families are out of town, especially right now. And so their willingness to meet with them via Zoom and just kind of walk with them through kind of that process, especially for some of our families who have verifications that are needing to be submitted, things of that nature, who might not understand, okay, what does this mean? And so if you're a student at any time, you or your student needs to be a part of that process with you, right? But if they have questions regarding their financial aid because they see that they have a flag in their account, they can go online to the financial aid website and schedule a virtual appointment with one of the financial aid counselors. And this is a really great way, again, just to have those professionals directly from that office being able to give you exact advice on what needs to be done and kind of walk you through that and help make sense, because sometimes it can be a little overwhelming and confusing. And this is really just the easiest way. And thank you for Quang for bringing that up, wichita.edu/finaid appointment. And then you'll be able to book your appointment online with any of our financial aid advisors. And so that is just, again, kudos to you and your staff for always being on standby and willing to assist and help our families out.
I will also add that we do have a FAQ section on our website. So we've anticipated some regular questions that we get from students and families and have put those on our webpage. So if you'll go to our website, financialaid.wichita.edu, and you will be able to see that FAQ page, and all of the questions that regularly come to us have been answered there. So be sure to check that out as well. And then I see a question in the chat about outside. My lights in my office just went out. There's a question about outside scholarships, and those outside scholarships, they tend to come in from now through September. So as we receive them, we will add that to your account, and then it will get applied to those charges once we start dispersing. If we have it and we don't need anything like a endorsement from the student, we will automatically apply that to their account. And then if for those that we do need an endorsement, we'll send an email asking the student to come in and complete that endorsement, and then we'll put that on their account.
Was there something else, Kim, you were going to add?
Yeah, no, there was just another question. Parent Plus loans versus private loans, I think it was. Advice on Parent Plus loans versus private loans.
So the Parent Plus loans and private loans are available for that gap in that cost of attendance between what the student would get for aid and what the total overall costs are. And so you can apply for either. Sometimes you have to look at the rates that are being offered. If the student is able to get a very low rate for that private loan, that's an option. It's not, it used to be that the rates for private loans were significantly higher, and then it might not be the best option, but these days there are great rates. And so you just look at the interest rate and see what would be the better option. And sometimes parents feel like that obligation does belong to the student, and so they want the student to take a private loan. But in other cases, because the Parent Plus loan, the repayment on that starts 60 days after that initial disbursement. And so when that gets dispersed, you want to make sure that you're ready to start the repayment on that as a parent versus the student loans. Now, the private loans have different repayment plans than your federal student loans, which have that grace period. There's a 6-month grace period between when you leave school and then you start that repayment 6 months later. So, and then that's either leaving school because you quit school or because you have graduated. There's that 6 month. Once you use that 6 months grace period, then that repayment starts. So in the summertime when there's a break between attendance, then you're not using up the 6 months. You're only using up 3 months, and then that 6 months starts again. So really the best option in this is federal student loans first that the students would borrow, and then tap into Parent Plus loans, and then private loans would be kind of the final option, depending on what the parent is willing to borrow on behalf of their dependent student.
Perfect. All right. So again, if there's any other questions that come up regarding financial aid or scholarships, Sheilu's going to stick around. But in the meanwhile, we're going to go ahead and transition over to Teresa Turn, who is with our Office of Financial Operations. And Teresa, we already got a lot of questions in the chat going, girl. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn it over to you. A lot of these questions will probably be asked or answered through her presentation, but if not, feel free to drop those in the chat box and we'll get to them as soon as we can.
Okay, well, thank you, Alicia. Well, good evening. My name is Teresa Tureen, and I have been with Wichita State for 22 years. So been around for a while, and I'm here this evening to begin our partnership with you and your student. We strive to help your student become a successful shocker. Everything I will be discussing this evening can be found on our website, and that is wichita.edu/AR. And that's what you can see right here. Under Student, Current, and Perspective, this is the great place to find your answers. We don't have frequently asked questions. We have searching for an answer, and I will get to that here in just a moment. One thing I do want to talk about is important dates. These are listed separately. And if you click on that and you click on the applicable semester, which would be fall of 2023, these are the AR dates for each semester that pertain to your student's bill, such as when to drop a class, when payments are due, when we'll run bills. And make sure you're looking at the dates for the correct semester, but look at these dates on a regular basis to make sure that your student is staying within the boundaries of when it's the last day to get 100% refund or when their payments are due. So again, that's the important dates on the AR webpage. So I spoke about searching for an answer. You can click on this, and this will take you into a database. You can use a phrase or keyword, or you can always come down by topic. So our topic is tuition, fees, and payments. You can see here listed out some of the different questions that we have. If you click on these arrows, it will expand out so that you can see all of the questions that come in under that. So we're going to talk about statements. So I'm going to go ahead and put in here statements. So statements for currently enrolled students are available online through the Student Account Suite. And I'm going to show you a Student Account Suite here in a moment, but I just need you to know that bills are not sent through the mail. Another thing is to be cognizant that if your student makes changes to their schedule, and they always will, first couple of weeks of classes, many students change their mind about what session they're in. They want to be in the class with their roommate. So just be aware every time they touch their bill or change a class, it could change their bill. So you always want to make sure you keep an eye on your student's billing statement to pay it in full before the deadline. Many people need to have an itemized bill because they want to use a college fund, such as a 529, to pay for their students' classes. So you can come out here and how do I request a copy of an itemized bill? You can click on this question and it will take you through all of the answers of how to print an itemized bill. So I'm going to show you how to do that again in just a moment. I will get to these questions and show you how to do it on an actual statement, on an actual student. Payments. Payments can be made online using a card or an electronic check. So we're going to go back here and we're going to put in payments. And you're going to see, how do I make a payment online? What are the payment deadlines? How do I make a payment for housing? Payments can be made online using a card or an electronic check. But please note that if you're using a card of any type, including a debit card, there will be a fee of 2.95% interest added to your total. So if you select an electronic check, there is not any additional fees added to your payment. So that's the best way for you to go. When we receive a payment, we pay off in a certain system. We pay against your tuition, fees, housing, and meals. So one thing to note is that we're not going to kick your student out of housing. As long as you're making the payments will get applied accordingly. If you are paying with a 529 or another type of college fund, the earlier you can request that check, the better it is to meet the deadline. So as I've already said, you can come out and get an itemized bill. You can send that into your 529 and you can have them send the check directly to us. You will want to include the student's name and their MyWSU ID. You'll want to have that check mailed directly to Wichita State, and I will give you that address. It is 1845 Fairmount, Box 38, and the zip code is 67260-0038. So again, 1845 Fairmount, Box 38, 67260-0038. And of course, that's Wichita, Kansas. Another question we have is, do you offer payment plans and is there a deadline? Yes, there is a deadline, which is the last date. You want to have it done by the last day to pay. Payment plans are available for tuition and fees as long as you have a balance of $150 or more. To set up a payment plan, there's a fee of $130. $100 is applied directly to the student bill, and $30 is for the setup fee. If your student has financial aid, you'll want to follow the steps for if you have financial aid. So if you click on this question and answer and you scroll down, you can see it says if you have financial aid. So you'll want to follow those steps when setting up the payment plan. Please don't get confused with payment plans for housing and meals. Housing and meals are set up automatically on a payment plan. And if you're going to pay the $130, that is for tuition and fees. Either way, all payments for any payment plan are due the 15th of each month. Financial aid. Well, for the fall 2023, financial aid will be applied to your student's account beginning August 13th. As Shilu stated, we have to do it within 10 days from the start of class. So that will be August 13th. Direct deposits for excess aid will begin that week as checks are, as well as checks being mailed to your student. Please be aware, if your student makes changes to their classes after financial aid has been applied, and especially if a refund was issued, remember to check their account to determine if additional fees are due. Refunds made via direct deposit or check are quicker with direct deposit. So you would want to put into this search bar direct deposit, and this will show you how do you set up a direct deposit. You can use your students' accounts or you can use your account, whatever you as a family decide upon. Just make sure that the student is able to get a hold of that money if needed to purchase their books or to purchase a computer or anything like that. Another question that we get is how and when will I receive my refund? Again, it is quicker for you to get your refund by direct deposit. That is 3 to 5 business days as compared to 7 days if a check is mailed to the student. Another thing that is important is authorized users. So we're going to look up authorized user. And these are the steps of how can I set up an authorized user to make a payment on my account. Please note that this is different from proxy, as authorized users are able to review the student's balance, make payments, set up a payment plan for the current semester fees, as well as view the 1098-T for tax purposes in the spring. So again, this is a great resource. It's out on the WSU wichita.edu/AR under students for perspective as well as current. So I've told you I was going to show you what a student account looked like. The student accesses it through their portal and they go under My Finances, and in the green box, green for cash, they would click on Student Account Suite. And that would take them to this. And this is an actual student at WSU, and this is what an account would look like. So if you want to know what is the balance that you are needing to pay, you would click here on balance, and it would give you the amount. And I am sorry, it just kicked me out. So just one moment. I apologize. If we have a question at this time, I could probably answer that while I'm logging in.
I'll jump in because I think I got turned around in some of the things that you were saying. I think that one of the questions was, is there a deadline to pay? And you went over the payment deadlines, the 15th. If you're on a payment plan, the 15th of each month. But if you're paying the semester in full, that deadline is the last day to pay, which is
September 1st.
There you go, September 1st. So I just wanted to make sure we clarified that as well. So those are a couple of the ones that I saw.
Okay. And I might be getting back in here if everybody can bear with me just a moment. Okay. Thank you for your patience. And I'm going to go ahead and get back into this. So again, this is how you see the student's account. So if you wanted to add somebody as an authorized user, you would come over here to My Profile Setup and click on Authorized User. The student would put in their name, and an email for the authorized user and what they want that person to see. And what would happen is once they hit continue, an email would go to the authorized user and they would have to respond to that email to set up their account. Anytime you have any questions, you can always go back to home and it will get you to where you need to go next. So if you want to make a payment, you click on make a payment. And if you're paying your current account balance or just the amount due, because if you owed for an entire semester, that amount would be here. But if you only needed to pay at this time your tuition and fees and your first month of rent, you would click amount due. Now, you don't have to use a payment plan. You don't have to pay out through the month. You can go ahead and you can pay your bill in full by using the current account balance. You would select that and you would say how you wanted to make that payment, and you would hit continue and go through the account. I'm not going to do that here because I don't want to pay this person's bill today. I'm sure she would appreciate it, but I'm not going to do that today. We're going to go back to home. If you wanted to see an itemized on-demand statement, I have spoken to you about that. You would click right here on View Itemized On-Demand Statement, and you would look for Fall and hit Submit. This would show you what is due, which is the $1,244. It would show you what made up that person's bill. It's tuition, it's support fees, it's mandatory fees. And this is the schedule that she is enrolled in. She is in an economics class. And you can print this or you can make a payment from here. So everything is available out on the student account suite. If you are just a proxy, you do not have access to this. So again, you would have to be set up as an authorized user. Anytime you wanted to set up a refund, you could go ahead over here to electronic refunds and you would select that section and you would set up what you want to use as a direct deposit. So at this time, I'm done with my presentation. If anybody has questions, do we have any more questions in the chat?
We got questions, Teresa.
I figured we did.
This time I wrote them down, so I'm not having to scroll back and forth. So, question: does the university charge the entire year the costs for housing on the invoice, or is that split by term?
That is split by term. Everything is divided out by term. So what you see on the student's bill is now for fall of 2023. Sometime in December, you will see your spring fees go on.
Perfect. Okay. We got the question answered about the payment plan options, late fees. So the payment plan for tuition and fees, is that a separate payment plan from the housing payment plan, or
Yes,
is it one and the same?
No, they're separate. So we automatically put the student's housing onto a payment plan. But if you want to do a payment plan for tuition and fees, you have to actually sign up for that and pay the $130 deposit. So that is separate. So when it comes time to pay your statement or pay your bill, and you're on two different payment plans, you will need to select both of them on the 15th of the month to make those payments.
Great. Okay, so parent wants to know, do they need to be an authorized user and have their own MyWSU account in order to do so? How do they do that?
What happens is the student would sign them up as an authorized user. The parent would go in and they would walk through some steps and they would become an authorized user. They do not have a MyWSU. It's just an authorized user, and they have certain ways to get into that. So then what would happen is the parent would be able to see everything that the student has allowed them to see, their billing statement, their 1098T, to allow them to make payments. That's all under authorized user.
I think another question was, can they set up an electronic fund transfer with a 529 plan?
Yes, they can do that. That would go through a third party, but the bank can go ahead and set that up through Flywire. And Flywire is something that you can go out to the questions and you can put in wire transfer, and it would help you, it would direct you to that.
Other questions? I want to give a quick shout out to Ron from Dallas. His daughter, he actually has 2 daughters here at Wichita State with us. Ron has been a faithful parent, follower, supporter for 4 years. His baby's about to graduate this year. And so I just want to say shout out to Ron out there holding it down in Texas for us and helping to recruit students. We appreciate you. And as always, you're a big part of the Shocker family, Ron. All right. So another question. So for authorized user, where does that email, what email address will the authorized user note come from?
Whatever address the student enters in when they set them up as an authorized user.
Okay. And then Adam had asked, there we go. So if they have a tuition and fees payment plan, we will also have a room and board payment plan. When we wish to make a payment, do we allocate what portion of that payment goes to each payment plan?
Yes, when you go to make that payment, you're going to want to pay by line, and you would be able to select your housing, your meals, and then your payment for tuition and fees. So you would want to do it by line item.
Great. I think another thing.
Can I
go ahead, Kim?
Yeah, I want to jump in here real quick. I'm not sure if I'm either misinterpreting this question or not. Teresa, I just want to circle back to where the email comes from as the authorized user. I think the question is, if my student entered my email as who is that coming from?
Wichita State.
It's coming from Wichita State. Okay.
Yes.
So in their inbox, they should look for Wichita State University.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. I apologize.
Sure. No, you're fine. You're fine. All right. I wanted to make sure we got that in there. So,
So one of the things that I wanted to kind of just talk briefly about, and this is something that Shilu and I often kind of go back and forth with students and families on, is that, there's a lot of times there's that gap, right, of a portion of their tuition and fees that's not going to be covered by federal financial aid or scholarships. And what is the plan and how we're going to meet that need? And so it's really important to really sit down and have a budget with your student. Is the expectation that they need to find a job on campus? We have a job fair getting ready to happen this summer for students to find a job on campus. Are they work study eligible? Can they work on campus and use that money to help pay down that gap, right? And also, one thing, as a mom, my kid gets on and I love she's independent and she wants to, go and sign up for her own housing, her room. But when I go back and I'm looking at, Marissa's stuff online, I see that she wants a private 4-bedroom and she doesn't want to share with anybody. Well, baby, does your budget meet that requirement? It may or may not. And so that's something that I think, Shilu and I, we spend a lot of time talking with students about is, do you really need that private, that single bedroom? Because that's a significant significant difference in costs when we're looking at what's remaining left to pay, right? And so making sure that you're taking time to kind of really go through that fee bill with them. What did you sign up for? What is essential and what do you absolutely need when it comes to housing? Because, that does make a difference. And I would say, Shilu's team, Kim's team, Teresa, all of us, we are on standby to help students figure life out. But we're also going to give them tough love. And so if that means, hey, we need to get a job in, okay, so I'm going to make $8 an hour. Woo. Okay. We're going to need to look for a job for this many hours, this pay rate, in order to make sure we're meeting the need to pay for that bill. Is there anything else that you would like to add to that, Shilu? Because this is, I think, probably a frequent conversation that we have that I really want parents to kind of hear again, because we have it with the students, right? But
and I know it's a hard conversation, and it's difficult because they're so excited about college and they're not thinking about the costs. And so I often ask a student, how much have you saved? Have you worked during your high school years? And how much have you put away for college costs? That lunch that you're having with your friends, or that program that you want to attend. There's so many little costs that add up, even though the big picture of tuition and fees and housing may be taken care of. There's also smaller costs that come in. And what I try to encourage students to do is to think about, instead of the immediate gratification, think about the long term. Do you want to repay that loan and have a lot of loan debt? If we can avoid loan debt by taking that smaller amount that you're saving and not taking out a loan instead of that amount that you're saving, you have just really won the lottery. You, by saving dollars and applying it towards those costs, long-term benefit. In the short term, it's a little bit painful because you're not spending it on. And I know parents and guardians out there share this with their student, and it's hard to hear. But this is the time to where you can actually apply it to a real life situation of these costs. So you start with having conversations. You bring us into that conversation so that we can play, really provide that tough love from a financial aid administrator perspective and reinforce what you as parents are sharing. But it starts with having that conversation. And once you start that conversation and talk about how you're going to really be partners, we're going to partner with you, you're going to partner with your student, and we're all going to work together to make this affordable. We know students want to come here, want to do all the great things, the student involvement and all the activities that we have on campus, and we want them here. But we also don't want them to struggle financially. So in terms of not struggling financially, that means having a plan and working that plan. That could be, I have a lot of students who, when they go home for holiday breaks and things, they go back to their job that they had previously, and they work so that they can save. So it is a vacation, but it's a working vacation because they're trying to save for costs. So we're just trying to partner. We'll come up with all kinds of creative ideas on how we can make this work for you and your family. It's just having those conversations with us. And now we have resources that we can also provide you in terms of this knowledge, cash course and the workshops, because really it's about being mindful about their spending and your costs, and then trying to minimize that so that it is manageable for the whole family. So we're here to help always.
Yeah. And I think, and that's, I think the big thing is like making sure we have the conversation before they get here of what is that expectation, right? And then also taking advantage of the cash course. A lot of our students who come in, I remember a parent calling me in the spring semester saying, my kid's not eating, they're out of, their dining dollars, blah, blah, blah. And I go in and I ask them to pull, because I'm thinking there's no way they have a dining plan, they have this. The student was buying Starbucks, a venti Starbucks drink every morning. Do you know how much a venti Starbucks drink is? Kim, give me an estimate. We get it all the time, girl. Okay, they don't got Starbucks money, right?
$4.23. No, something like that, right around there.
But it adds up. And so just making sure that those expectations are out there in advance. The other thing that I will say is that if a student's account is not paid off by the end of the semester, a financial hold will be placed on their account. And so, Kim, do you want to talk about, or Teresa, what does the financial hold entail, and what do they need to do in order to get that financial hold lifted?
In order to get the financial hold lifted, in order to be able to enroll for the next semester, the student needs to come in and speak with us after the last day of the payment plan. So that would be November 16th. They would need to come in and speak with us directly, and we could help them out in order to be enrolled for the next semester. That will require the student making a payment of some sort today. Or that particular day, so that we can go ahead and allow them to enroll by lifting their hold. So if they have any questions, they can come in and see somebody in the debt management team in our office.
Great.
And Alicia, I'll also add one other thing that, families often come in and ask us about, and we're available to help with, is if your circumstances change. If the family has experienced something unusual, that when a student files a FAFSA, they're using their tax return from 2 years ago. Family and student are using older tax returns. And there could have been so many life changes that happened in those couple years, 2-3 years since they filed. So what we want to do is talk about that and see if there are some options. A lot of times these things are like divorces, family separations, that kinds of things. There are situations where job loss, whether it is one parent, we have seen that happen, where job loss is a major situation in a family, and we want to help kind of navigate that to see if there's anything else resource-wise. Now, if a student is already receiving a full Pell Grant, and there's not much more that we can do if they're already receiving all of the aid. But in there are some situations where we can help, whether that's in a small way, whether that's resources that we can redo the FAFSA, make changes to it from a professional judgment kind of perspective as an institution. We have those options. So, but you have to come and let us know that those changes have occurred. That's where you have to communicate with our office regularly, and the student has to pay attention to the information we send them via email, checking that often to make sure that they are aware of what's happening and they act on it. And then we're here to help again.
I wanted to add in that's a very difficult conversation for students to have, because they're not comfortable with it, because they don't always understand it. And mom and dad or someone else from the family, or, whomever, has been kind of working on that with them. They've kind of taken care of the bills, potentially, not in all cases, but in a lot of the cases. And they just kind of need that push. It's scary to go talk to someone about, oh my gosh, I can't do this because I owe money. And that's a hard conversation to have. But I will tell you that more often than not, I know from, stories of financial operations and accounts receivable, you got to show the effort. You got to show good faith. You got to show, I kind of screwed up. I kind of didn't know what I was doing. Can you help me? And more than willing to be flexible. The last thing we want to do is throw up a bunch of things and, say, no, you can't enroll. Too bad. So sad. You didn't know what you were doing. That's not what college experience is about. If that behavior continues to happen semester after semester after semester, you might get to that point where it's a little less flexible the fourth time you've gone in. But that first time is so overwhelming. And it really kind of creates some anxiety for students. So we know that those are difficult conversations. Teresa's team, Shilu's team, they know that, but they're so flexible and willing to have the conversation. They understand it's hard for a student. They may not understand it all. They'll be patient and walk them through the process, or, get mom on the phone, get uncle on the phone, get whoever on the phone during the meeting. And, let's have the conversation, and students present and all of that. But it's very hard for students to ask, especially financial questions, when they don't themselves, they don't have a lot of experience with it at that point. So just know that as the parents, encourage them to seek out, and encourage them to communicate. Like Shilu said, all it takes is a question, but asking that question sometimes is really hard to do. So just as a note, encourage your student. We will be nice. We will work with them.
So I wanted to get to Robin Mason's question. Has the student account suites been updated with balance? I am seeing an amount for family contribution, but a different amount on the balance. Can you help clarify that, Teresa?
Shilu, I think that kind of crosses over with family contribution with financial aid, but the balance is current as of now. Financial aid will be applied on August 13th. At that time, you will see what is due, but family contribution kind of comes in under financial aid.
Correct. The family contribution is what the FAFSA results, what that is telling us that your expected family contribution might be. That doesn't mean that's what we expect from you in terms of what you're going to pay. That is just so that we can determine the aid package. Some of the aid that is need-based is dependent on that number of the estimated family contribution. And so that's how we calculate that. That has really no impact on your payment or your balance. So that those are two separate things.
Thank you.
Great. And then Chantel, you may have joined a little late, but yes, a 529 payment can be applied directly to the student's account. And so one of the things that I just want to remind folks is, and Teresa did an amazing job of pulling it up, one stop, make that, save it on your favorites, your home screen. If you go at any time for questions, you want a screenshot, a walkthrough, step-by-step. If you go to wichita.edu /one-stop, you can type in authorized user, proxy, payment plan, and all of the information will come up. And so if that is something that you want a little bit more deep dive into, feel free to check out the information we have online there. It is great. I'm using One Stop probably on a daily basis for something. And so it's great there. Any other questions? We are right at time. I do have one announcement really quickly. Drum roll, please. Our winner for tonight is Robin Mason. So congratulations, Robin. You won some Shocker swag coming to you in the mail this week. So we'll get that sent out to you. As always, thank you for joining us online. We really, we enjoy doing these. And then, especially when you get on campus and you're here for orientation and we get to meet you in person, it makes it, that much better. And so again, if you have any questions, feel free to go online, shoot us an email, and we will be happy to respond and help answer any questions you may have. Without any other questions coming in, we look forward to welcoming you and your Shockers to campus in a few short weeks. And until then, take care and have a shocktastic evening. Bye-bye.